Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Happy Friday. Today we do get to talk about Giga Berlin's final approval. Along with that approval, we do have some more details on what happens from here. We'll go through those. Also got an update on that water court case, a couple of rumors on both new factories, more news on that Panasonic factory that I mentioned yesterday, some news on China, delivery wait times, and a couple other items as well. Quick look at the stock today. Tesla doing relatively well, just down 0.1%, while the Nasdaq was down 1.7%, and the Nasdaq was down significantly more than the Dow and the S&P. Generally, that's not a good environment for higher growth stocks, so Tesla doing pretty well under that circumstance. And for the week, Tesla actually finished up 3.5%, while the Nasdaq was down 2.8%. So a 6% spread for a high growth stock in a down market. That's pretty darn good. I think the rumors around Giga Berlin's final approval did definitely help throughout this week, and as expected today, we did get that official announcement from the Brandenburg state government, which announced that approval in a press conference and a couple of press releases. So they say that they've received the final approval notice for the construction of its 2 factories for the production of electric cars and battery cells. It's nice to have that confirmation. I mean, obviously this is maybe a little bit behind on vehicle production from where Tesla would have liked to be, but for battery cells, this seems to be right on or even a little bit ahead of where Tesla is at. So obviously the mood of this press conference was very celebratory, finally crossing this milestone. It's a big deal. A lot of work was done by both sides, all sides here, to get to this point. It's a huge day for Tesla and a huge day for Berlin and Brandenburg and all of Germany. Despite all those things to celebrate, the state did also acknowledge that there are things that could be improved with this whole process. In this release, they write that, quote, "Above all, digitization can help to simplify and accelerate processes without restricting environmental standards and participation rights. In Brandenburg, we are pioneers nationwide in the field of electronic application procedures and will step up our initiatives in relation to the new federal government," end quote. Now, I'm not sure how much of this was digitized, but that definitely seems to be a need. They note in this press release that the approval documents spanned 23,700 pages across 66 files. They actually shared out a photo of about 30 different binders here containing approval documents with the final approval document in the middle, and that spans more than 500 pages. So that is a good look at the process that is now complete with this final approval. Now, that being said, as we had talked about before, there are still a couple of boxes that Tesla needs to check off here. We finally got a little bit more clarity on what those things are in another press release. Brandenburg says that, quote, "Before Tesla can put the system into operation, several ancillary provisions must be met, which must be first checked by the responsible authorities. These include, for example, the installation of measuring devices for air pollutants and precautions for fire protection and accidents," end quote. If I'm understanding correctly, it looks like there are more than 400 of these provisions that Tesla needs to meet. That sounds like a lot, but again, my understanding is that this is more of a validation step rather than a plan review and permitting process. Alex Voigt notes that in the question and answer portion of the press conference, the state minister said that Tesla plans to fulfill all requirements for a production start of Giga Berlin in 2 weeks. That fits perfectly with the rumor that we had heard that Tesla is planning an opening event and the first vehicle deliveries on the 22nd or 23rd of March. One other thing I did notice in these press releases, and I don't know if this is cause for any concern because it's a little bit strange, but apparently they will be posting this final approval online and it'll be available for 2 weeks. And then after that, for a 1-month period, objections to the approval can be raised. So we'll actually come back to that in a second, but presumably that is the time for anyone and everyone to dig through this and see if they can come up with some way that Tesla or the state was wrong with any step of this approval. And then if they find something like that, they could challenge it. So get ready for that. That will probably come. But if and when that does happen, at least during any of those challenges, Tesla should be able to be in production. So that's kind of the same situation that we're seeing right now with the water supply. As we had talked about, that court case was today. It sounds like there has been a ruling on that, but as I am recording, I don't think there is a strong consensus on exactly what that means for Tesla quite yet. I think people are still trying to figure that out from the limited reporting on it, and there seems to be a little bit of disagreement or contention on what exactly that is from some of our go-to German commentators. So with that being said, my limited understanding is that the court did find an issue with how the approval process was handled in terms of how this water supply was achieved by the water supplier. We can translate a snippet of an article shared on Twitter by Tobias Lind. It says, "In the end, the court decided and granted the environmental organizations a partial success. The permit for almost 4 million cubic meters of water per year in Eggersdorf is illegal and not enforceable. The court found that there was an error in public participation. That has to be made up for. However, this does not mean that the approval has been revoked, and this decision can be appealed." So my read is that there was an error in the permitting process, not enough time for public participation. You may remember that a portion of the Gigafactory Berlin approval was redone because they realized they hadn't left enough time for public participation and they wanted to avoid exactly this. However, as you can see there, they also say that this does not mean that the approval has been revoked. So I think where the confusion is coming in is if that means that the water supply is there and Tesla can get as much as they need, or if they have to wait for this public participation process to happen. And there's also that appeal possibility there that could change what happens in the interim. Now, at the beginning of production, Tesla may not even need as much water as that supply contract is for anyway, and I think that just induces even a little bit more confusion on what exactly will happen here. So that's my understanding of where we're at right now. Hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about this over the weekend. It's not the best case of it being over and done with, but there certainly still seems to exist a possibility of this not having an impact on Tesla. Definitely dampens the mood a little bit on that final approval, but setting that aside, again, this is a huge day for Berlin. They're about to see how big of an impact this makes on their local economy, the speed with which Tesla moves once these approvals are out of the way. They noted in their press conference that there are already 3,000 workers at Giga Berlin and more being hired every day. Elon showed some appreciation today, tweeting in German that, quote, "I would like to thank you very much. The future is very exciting," end quote, with 2 German flags. While we're on the topic, we've also got a couple of rumors about Giga Berlin and Texas as well, but starting with Berlin, this is coming from Troy Cherasaro. He's got some sources that are telling him that test production at Giga Berlin is going well and has reached 100 units per day on some days. Now, obviously, that's a peak production rate. We can't really extrapolate that, but if we were to, a sustained rate around that level would be 9,000 per quarter. That's pretty good for this early stage. Second rumor here is that production is expected to shut down for 3 weeks when they switch from 2170 to 4680 cells. This is expected to happen in Q3 or Q4 this year. As I mentioned, the battery factory is approved with this final approval, so as long as the ramp up in Texas and the pilot plant for 4680s goes well, then yeah, I would imagine that we'll see it pretty soon from Berlin too. As for that pilot plant, we had talked previously about Tesla producing their 1 millionth 4680 cell in January. Apparently the target is to produce the 2 millionth cell by the end of March. Now, 1 million cells, as we had talked about before, that's probably enough for a little over 1,000 Model Ys, depending on what the pack size is. If we assume they hit that millionth cell in mid-January, then 1 million since then by the end of March, that would mean about 150 to 200 vehicles worth of batteries per week. When we had walked through sort of that hypothetical ramp, that would be a little bit slower than what I think I would have hoped for, but hopefully we'll see those rates really kick up in Q2 then. And the other rumor here for Giga Texas is that cell production is expected to start early April 2022. If that's the case, obviously that could dramatically change the trajectory of that ramp. All right, moving on from Tesla's factories and batteries, now we go over to Panasonic's. I mentioned this yesterday, but it was kind of just coming out as I was recording. We now have a little bit more information. So Panasonic looking at factory locations in Oklahoma or Kansas, that's what the report is. Adding to that is that they are looking to spend several hundreds of billions of yen. 300 billion yen would be $2.6 billion. So this is a sizable investment for a very large battery factory if these reports are accurate. Based on local reporting, certainly seems to be the case. So kansascity.com reporting that they're looking to build the factory, and if it were in Kansas, it would probably be in DeSoto, Kansas. They note that they're competing with Oklahoma, which is looking to lure Panasonic to the Tulsa area. So it should be exciting to see how this develops. Goldman Sachs put out a note on this today, and they note that they believe that this is an indication that 4680 test production is probably going well for Panasonic. Plus, remember that we had the announcement from Panasonic earlier this week that they did finalize that location for the 4680 production facility in Japan, and they gave that timeline guidance for the fiscal year ending March 2024. All right, next up, we've got a couple of pieces of news on China. First up, a tweet from the Chinese ambassador to the US, Xingan. He shared that he had met with Elon Musk, saying, "Had an inspiring talk with Elon Musk today on cars on the road, stars in the sky, research of the human brain, meaning of life on Earth, and our future into space. Look up and think beyond." Looks like they also spent some time in a Plaid Model S and took it out for a ride with the FSD Beta. Or I don't know, maybe FSD Alpha, but if you zoom in there, you can't really see anything that looks too different on the screen, at least to me. Anyway, I don't really have any insight to add here, but it is interesting to see them meeting. The other quick news we have on China is an update to delivery estimates. So the Model 3 has been changed to 16 to 20 week estimates for all vehicle configurations. All the Model Ys are falling somewhere in between 10 to 20 weeks, with the long-range Model Y being the longest at 16 to 20 weeks. So long backlogs seem to be persisting. It's been a while since I remember seeing wait time estimates that long for China. Then we've got a similar update here for Germany. The base configuration on both the rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive versions, estimates there have moved out to February 2023. So this year, Tesla going to see a lot of mixed benefit from prioritizing those higher margin options. All right, next, moving back over to the United States, we've got a couple of politician updates. First, the United States Secretary of Labor, He was asked about Elon Musk and he said, quote, "Let me put it this way, I would love to have a conversation with Mr. Musk and talk about anything he would like to talk about. Certainly it's a big company in the United States of America and a very innovative company in the United States of America. I am willing to have a conversation with anybody," end quote. I think that was probably in the context of the UAW tweet that Elon had a couple of days back. I didn't really comment on that because I didn't really see any reason to it. Of course, Tesla employees can unionize. It's illegal to stop them from unionizing if they want to. So not really news on that, but that's probably why the Labor Secretary was being asked about this. Anyway, the other little thing here is that President Biden has once again acknowledged Tesla in a small way. I think the comment here might have actually been copy and pasted from that last speech where he mentioned Tesla. It is in fact a new instance though, so we can move the counter up to 2 times. Next, we've got a quick analyst update. Morgan Stanley out with a new note today answering the question of what would you buy in a supply-constrained, macro-uncertain, inflationary environment. Jonas notes they'd be looking for a strong brand, a long order backlog, strong balance sheet and access to capital, and strong pricing power, which they believe Tesla has all of the above. Of course, I agree with that, and I think that's very much just the beginning of that list. All right, last couple of things here. First, we've got some more details from Volkswagen about their production plans for their next generation electric vehicle. They're calling that Trinity. They've announced that they expect to invest some 2 billion euros for the factory that they will build Trinity in. They expect to begin construction on this factory spring 2023 and bring this to production sometime in 2026. They say that, quote, "The Trinity project is the new lodestar for Volkswagen's all-electric fleet and the crystallization point for the brand's Accelerate strategy, a much shorter charging time and a range of over 700 kilometers, net carbon neutral, equipped with the group's state-of-the-art software, technically ready for autonomous driving level 4. The foundation is the group's new SSP platform. Over its lifetime, more than 40 million vehicles are projected on this basis. The platform debuts in the volume segment with Trinity," end quote. 700 kilometers, by the way, to save you the conversion, 435 miles. They also note that they are targeting a production time of 10 hours per vehicle for Trinity. Remember, Herbert Diess has been very clear that right now it takes them 30 hours compared to Tesla's 10. So they're targeting where Tesla is today for 2026. And this is where Tesla is before 4680s, before structural packs, before front casting comes in addition to rear casting. Volkswagen may want to up that target a little bit if they expect to compete with Tesla at that point in time. All right, last item for today, we've got a joint statement from Sony and Honda that they have signed a memorandum of understanding outlining their intent to establish a joint venture through which they plan to engage in the joint development and sales of high value added battery electric vehicles. They're planning to establish this new company sometime this year, and they expect the sales of the first electric vehicle model from this new company to begin in 2025. They say that the new company is expected to plan, design, develop, and sell the electric vehicles, but not own and operate manufacturing facilities. So Honda is expected to be responsible for manufacturing, and it's expected that a mobility service platform will be developed by Sony and made available to the new company. Well, I'm sure this will go very smoothly and have no problems, and we'll see Sony dominating the market in 2025, or, maybe not. All right, well, with that, we'll wrap it up for today and for the week. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. Also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and we'll see you on Monday for the March 7th episode of Tesla Daily. Have a great weekend. Thank you.